Welcome to Funnel Reboot, the podcast that shares ideas on how to upgrade your lead generation. Here is your host, Glenn Schmeltzley.
Hey, Glenn here. Welcome to Funnel Reboot, where we explore how to upgrade our lead generation. Today, we're diving into vitamins and painkillers. But first, I want to remind you that you have a say in these episodes. Feedback, ideas for future talks. I want to hear it all from you. So please message me on social networks at Funnel Reboot. You can leave listener feedback at 613-703-7073, and I'm happy to put it on the show, or get in touch on the funnelreboot.com site. So to today's show, one of the basic principles that's taught to you before you get marketing some product is you first suss out why someone buys that product. That seems a simple enough thing to do, but is it? What makes this complex is the fact that different jobs demand different products. Let's say you're sending a physical object to someone who's on another continent. You aren't going to take it there yourself, so your likely option is to mail it. To you, the mail service fits the mold of the product, air quotes, you should buy in this case. But let's pretend this object is a birthday present and that their birthday is tomorrow. Now, what you require is it absolutely positively has to get from here to there overnight product. And for that, only a global courier like FedEx fits the mold. Not every product in a category suits the job a customer has in mind. So those of us selling products must know the job our product is bought to do. And these jobs can loosely be divided by whether they help us improve something we may not feel an urgent need for, or they immediately solve something that we absolutely positively need. Vitamins or painkillers. That's how someone that I know describes these two job types. And she's joining us to explain how knowing which type we have impacts positioning, customer service, product road mapping, and a whole lot more. She is the head of marketing at Incognito Software Systems. She has 15 years of product and corporate marketing experience and has worked with organizations like Disney and TD Canada Trust, which listed her as one of the 30 under 30 marketing professionals to watch. She's also been honored by Adobe as a Fearless 50 Marketer 2019-2020. She's a member of Forbes Communications Council and is involved in mentoring tech startups and women in leadership. She has a Master of Business Administration from the University of Ottawa. So let's go now to our talk with Dipalli Bhatt. Glad to have you on the show, Dipalli Bhatt. Welcome.
Yeah, glad to be here, Glenn. Glad to be here. I'm happy you invited me over.
Thank you. Well, I did because not only, as fate has it, are we in the same city, but we also are in the same field. And you have a pretty striking view of how work goes for those of us who market products. Specifically, you tend to put products into two main camps, and you've got a concept that describes this. Could you tell me about it?
Yeah. Yes, it's a very basic concept, Glenn. And, I basically try to find out whenever I'm asked to market a product or a new solution or anything, that is new in the market, I really look at painkiller versus vitamin it's not a framework, but it's a concept that we use. And, I always go about figuring out, is there a customer's unmet need? And if that need is there, then is this product a solution or an old solution that needs to be repositioned in the painkiller camp or the vitamin camp? And painkiller is like need to have, vitamin is nice to have. Painkiller solves unmet customer needs. and vitamin improves an existing solution. And you can look at it this way, that look at your single pill multivitamin,
Yep.
right? People have to change behavior to take it, and they have to put reminders on, and so on and so forth. But it's not the same when it's a headache,
Hmm.
right? So when I look at a solution, I look at it from a painkiller versus vitamin camp. And one big understanding that we all must have about vitamin products is that these are, when you're looking at it from a solution or a software product related view, you will basically see that oftentimes vitamins are features, functionalities, and not major platforms. And it's like using an API feed to feed correct SQs, KUs in into your website. That's something that any Shopify can do, right?
Yep.
So if you're in a business of doing that, then you have to know that later on you might just be trumped by someone who has more money. Whereas painkillers, for me, are helping clients, drive revenues and lower current costs of business, and so on and so forth. So, and plus also for painkiller products, because we're all into B2B software and hardware and complex environments, a painkiller product, in addition to driving more revenue or lowering current cost, also doesn't require or a substantial additional budget. um, it's very interesting, how via various experiences I've seen that there are distinct functions that a product can play when it's a painkiller or a vitamin.
Yeah, I love, once we put them into this binary uh, categorization, things become clear. The one thing, but it is nuanced, right? The one thing that helps me segregate vitamins is a vitamin to me would be for something that, let's say, I think I'm doing something okay. And then somebody taps me on the shoulder and says, there's something better out there. And, they're helping me perceive that benefit over top of what I thought was okay. Um, that's from a marketing standpoint, that's a much different job than to have something that somebody of their own accord says, I need this ASAP. This is going to fix a problem, and I can't stand this problem anymore.
I agree with you, and I think a lot of our jobs, entail turning vitamin products into, painkillers, and that's where you have to have a very honest discussion with your product peeps and your sales organization to really understand that. Like for it really all starts with sitting on sales calls and understanding how difficult is it for you to sell a product. And if you have to, ask a lot of questions, and you every time a customer says, "That's it, that's a problem that I'm wanting to solve, but it's in the future," your ears must perk up, because that's when you realize that you are selling a vitamin product, although you think that you're selling a painkiller product. And a lot of our jobs involve positioning, repositioning, or even working with product to change that vitamin product into a painkiller product. um, it's the same idea of look at the work management tools, like it's Twilio or it's Trello versus Asana board, right? So in general terms, so you know you have to realize that if you are a vitamin product, first of all, you have to be honest about yourself. If you're vitamin, you are vitamin. Then that's when you have to realize as a marketer that, and have an understanding of how much of an R&D budget does my organization have to turn this vitamin into a painkiller, right? Because your marketing cannot be way off than what your products are. Of course, you're selling into the future, you're doing roadmap selling and all that stuff, but you really have to keep an eye on the business, on the budgets, on the R&D, what's happening on the engineering side. So you have to have a full view of it. And if you realize really that your vitamin product is better, then you will see it in terms of pipeline, you will see it in terms of sales, and you will see that you're able to describe the problem in a way that people realize, oh my God, I had this problem. I was living with this symptom for longest time, but I had this problem. So, it becomes an art. Then it becomes an art of communication, of messaging, of rightly positioning it. But as a marketer, you need to have a clear view of where product is going from an R&D perspective, and how much of a supremacy it has, right? If it solves, if it is better, then how much better? Is it 50% better? Is 20% better than the existing solution? And you also don't have to look at the features and functionalities. You have to then look at the full customer experience. um, and that's where I feel the real differentiation happens, when you say ours is better, but then it also enhances the whole customer experience. You don't have to do this job, you don't have to do that job, but it also provides you analytics on top of this, and so on and so forth. So you have to look at it from a total customer experience perspective. You have to look at it from a jobs to be done framework, than to just look at it at, oh, I have this persona who is in IT or network ops or whatever it is, and they need a tool to do this.
Yep.
But if looking at it from that perspective, then you're not really solving an unmet need for you to really figure out everything about that persona, who he or she interacts with, what blockers they have within the organization, and so on and so forth. Like, there are lots of other things that happen with it. Once you understand that, that's when you're going to be able to really sell your vitamin product. It's not bad. Painkiller or vitamin. None of them are bad, none of them are good. It's just that you have to be honest with your understanding of the customer's unmet needs.
Yes, and there's so much in there, but going back to what you were saying about the customer needs, we have to know what they are. So that involves some fierce market research and interviews, listening in. Once we do, though, is what you're saying that we may understand that compared to the other things that they could choose to, handle their reality, that maybe we're early in that category. Maybe this is just an incipient category that hasn't yet become something that everybody realizes, I must have this. There was a time when smartphones were not a painkiller category. They were something that a few people had, but you didn't need one. Are you saying that kind of we need to get a sense of where the entire category, including our competitors, are with a client?
Absolutely. You have to understand that. Not only the category, but you also have to look at your indirect, elements that can affect your product. And I'll give you an example of iPods and Spotify. When iPod came, you couldn't stream music on from cloud. You could not, Amazon Echo had not come in there, or Google Home was not there. So iPod was all the rage. But then you see Spotify came in, and look at where the iPod business is. So you have to look at your direct competitors. You also have to look at indirect competitors, and what other products can really affect you. And so it requires a deep understanding of the industry for sure, a deeper understanding of your customer motivation and switching behavior, which is, I would say, the cornerstone, must be the cornerstone for your research. because there is a push and pull that's happening, right, of the current situation. What are the situations that will motivate your customers to switch? And then which elements of the new idea seem most appealing? Those are two different things.
Yes.
And then, then once you have had that, then you have to really then figure out that what is it that they really like about the current behavior that is keeping them from switching. So you then go from there, you go deeper, and you then go into the behavior of that customer or that persona.
It seems that we ourselves as marketers, though, we have to work internally with teams that are developing these products, the engineers, the designers, the product management team. Some of this may be bristling to them. You brought up this jobs to be done. Do you see jobs to be done as a way to help a marketer explain to people internally, no, they're not really using it for what you think they're using it for?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then you have to be data driven into it, right? You just cannot come to the meeting with, some random notes. You need to be data driven. You need to have had spoken to a number of customers, and have bucketized them enough that it is this product. I'm trying to test this functionality, or I'm trying to test why sales are not up, or whatever it says, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you have to come data driven, and you have to be very specific about what customer said what. Only then you can really drive home a point and talk intelligently with the engineering and the R&D teams, because they know the features, they know the functional part of it in and out. There's no way that you can challenge them onto it, and fairly so you shouldn't, right? So you have to be very data driven. You have to go with a lot of specifics in mind, and then you should also be able to show to them that what a product, how a product is perceived within the organization, and what are the must haves and good to haves, which can guide in some ways the roadmap as well. And that's what I see in winning organizations, that when it comes the time of the roadmap building, and so on and so forth, you're really looking at the feedback from 360 degrees and trying to guide your roadmap. Now, of course, we are not in San Francisco, so we are not building the roadmap based on futuristic things and visions, but there's always a percentage that we're building based on futuristic market industry related view. And then there are some that are guided by your main customers who are already paying you.
Yes.
So, as a marketer, you really have to strike a balance between those. Understand that there are limitations on the R&D side as well. There are limitations on how much capital you can put back into your company as well. So you need to have a holistic understanding, and then you will see that um, with each and every iteration of your solution or a product, you will see that there's more stickiness with the product, and then you will see that the pipeline is also increasing.
I think as marketers, we can identify not only with those tensions that you described inside the organization, but also as we look out to prospects and we work with our sibling department sales to go and close transactions. But I think it's interesting because we're like that. It's like a classic game of tug of war, and I think marketers feel like we're the rope. But when we look at those organizations and we take the vitamin versus painkiller idea that you have, I think it busts a couple of myths that maybe people inside of an organization might have about customers. If they don't get as much exposure, they may read things like, well, in B2B, a buying committee of 5.2 people looks at our specifications, our feeds and speeds, right? And they score them. And then that comes out in a final matrix evaluation, and we're picked as the winner. Great. That's so all we have to do is make a product that does this. What you say, though, kind of flies in the face of that. You're talking, you use emotive words, you use symptoms, pain, hurt, improvement. These kind of get down to, these portray a buyer as being a feeling person who is ready, frankly, to spend large amounts of money to solve something that they consider personally affects them, and that it almost would alter their state. It would make them maybe feel better, or maybe make them not feel so angry, or you know um, feel ill within their organization. um, where do you fall down on that line? Do you think that the buyer is that more feeling person, or do you think that they are just a calculated person and we don't really need to think about painkillers and vitamins because it's all boiling down to a matrix of scores?
It's such a great question. No one has actually asked me that question. And, I certainly want to weigh in on that. So, a buying committee is a committee, and they may be looking at it from various different views. There could be a financial person, there could be I would say, what do you call, there could be like a product or an innovation person in the committee. There could be people from supply chain, or people who are doing vendor management. There could be many different people in the committee, but at a basic level, all they are trying to do is they are trying to get different jobs done. A procurement, from a procurement perspective, they are looking at a vendor, and they're looking at, okay, how reputed is the vendor? Are they approved vendor? If they are not, or do they fulfill these other requirements? So they have a totally compliant side of it, right? Then there is a CFO, or the finance person, who's looking at it from a budget perspective and saying, okay, if I we fund this particular solution, then will my budget or my bottom line will be affected, will my beta will be affected, in the bigger grand scheme of things. So everybody is trying to get a job done, and that's where you have to understand, and that's where you have to strike a balance between the emotional, um, and the jobs to be done actually is not only emotional, but it's very factual as well. It keeps a lot of different, I would say, elements into check. One is, how there could be many different ways that you can skin this cat. With jobs to be done, you can look at it from build my business, deliver my product, manage my business, manage budgets, and so on, so for perspective. If you don't do a jobs to be done, you will be basically be marketing to a committee, or to even an each persona, with very generalistic message, or the messages that are still tailored, but they are not deep enough for them to have confidence in you that you really understand their realm. So, I've seen marketers reach out to procurement people, and that stuff really backfiring for them. So it's really understanding as marketers, what is their environment, what does their environment look like, who are the people they are trying to convince, what job they need to get done, whether it's research, whether it's review, whether it's managing the budgets, whether it's compliance, so on and so forth. Like, which person will not react to, hey, we have this product, you do, or a solution, you do not need extra budgets for it, and it solves this problem, but it also solves this problem, and you can convince your CEO based on that. And by the way, from a compliance perspective, it checks off these things. There's You won't have a dream that these are the problems that people one of your buying committee has. So it the goal is deep research.
Yeah.
and it's not, I feel.
Yeah, you're getting to their motivations. I love that. I hadn't thought for a moment that, the product could actually, and particularly in the case of, let's say, an enterprise application, it could represent to different stakeholders either a vitamin or a painkiller. But I would imagine if I have the messaging right, even for that party on the committee who it's only a vitamin for, well, at least they won't stand in the way of it being purchased. They will probably look across the table and realize, you know what, this person here, the primary user, this is a painkiller for them. So I'm voting for these guys because this is going to help us out overall.
Exactly. I like what you just said. That at least, even if it is a vitamin for someone else on the committee, they will not be a blocker.
Correct. That's
Yeah,
great.
absolutely. I totally agree with you.
Let's get back to what you were saying about how a product, in terms of its sophistication, could move past being a vitamin into a painkiller. Uh, if you can think of any examples, or if you can tell us a little bit more about that R&D that it's going to take to get it up to the next stage, what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I think I would suggest like 4 or 5 steps that you can take. Um, First of all, you need to really sit down on prospect calls. So you need to really sit down at inside sales, um, if possible. Some of those calls, outreach calls, sales calls. Um, if there are any XPRs that are happening, you need to sit down on those calls and really understand that, um, how does my product how is my product perceived when it's a greenfield opportunity as against to when it's a brownfield opportunity. So customers versus prospects, that's the first thing that you need to really look at. Um, uh, that's the first thing that I usually do. Then you look at, of course, by this time, it's a given that you are reading some RFPs and you have a good understanding of what are the general requirements, of the industry, of your customers, and so on and so forth. That's a given. But after that, you really understand the greenfield versus brownfield, customers versus prospect, environment. After you've had that, you prepare a document and then a presentation, and you cannot conduct an internal workshop to capture the current customer journey, right? Like, how how we perceive. The one thing that I do that I've not been able to do lately, but I've done this in the past, is how do I perceive sales happen, or the organization perceives sales happen, and how do they really happen, looking at it from a marketing person's view, or just an external person, who's in the background and not active in the journey. And you will see that when you look at that customer journey, there are major gaps that come in. And you can see that sales perceives that this helped, and then marketing perceives that this helped, and R&D perceives that this helped. But when you speak to the customer and you ask the same questions, you will see that the customer is perceiving this totally differently. The way their watering holes are totally different. In some cases, they will comment on one of the blogs that they read that didn't quite hit the mark as well, but they wanted to research more. And that in a way also helps on the sales enablement journey. That helps in what documents you should be sharing right after you have spoken to a customer or a prospect, and so on and so forth. So the second thing I would suggest is to conduct an internal workshop to capture the current customer journey from customer's perspective, from internal perspective. And the third is to conduct interviews with our customers, again, to capture additional insight in case you missed something. That's an optional. It really depends how good of a rapport you have with your customers. Then the third, I would say, is gather the negative and the benefit statements across the journey. So what customer says, like I mentioned, be very specific. Who said what account said what. So you will see that during the journey, there are some steps that are totally redundant that you should take out from your, whether it's your marketing materials, whether it's your sales enabled documents, whether it's, the messaging that goes, the way you reply to the RFPs, and so on and so forth. So it has many, many benefits that benefit, sales engineers, that benefit sales, that benefits marketing, and that in some cases also benefits executives. Then I would say the last is to analyze the data, and this is specifically for R&D. I would say analyze the data to pull out recommendations based on importance versus satisfaction, because you really want, because R&D and engineering thinks differently than all of us, and they are conditioned to look at a certain thing differently, which helps a lot. But at the end of the session, you should be able to give something to the R&D back, where they can leverage the data to identify the benefits with the highest opportunity to go after. With, maybe it could be features, it could be anything else, right? So this is like my 5 pointer, I would say, approach. And then, of course, the last thing is that you A/B test everything with the core product or a solution, and that's when you will see that there are some trends that you see that starts from the customer journey to greenfield, brownfield, to to the importance versus opportunities, and so on and so forth. So it's a very interesting exercise, and it doesn't take 6 months to do that. Because I mentor some upcoming marketers, and they're like, but this would take a lot of time, and people think that they need all the information up, right? But that doesn't happen. Nobody has time 6 months, right? So you
Right.
really need to do it at pace.
Yeah, but I think as marketers, we can play the role of conductor and we can orchestrate these things to come together. Maybe some of them are already around. So, yeah, it's better to use what's already latent and then build on the rest. I think, frankly, you can also keep expectations tempered internally in your organization rather than walking out, like banging a big drum saying we're going to do this large initiative. No, just, wouldn't it be more pleasant if you came to the R&D, frankly, near the end of your process and say, hey, we found some interesting things that the clients want to optimize for, and here's a list of features, and look, they're all rated on this scale, and the highest ones should probably be your first ones to crack. I think people would welcome that.
I totally agree. And if you can templatize everything,
Oh, that's even better.
if you templatize everything, then people know what amount of content they have to read, and they can bucketize the information the way they like.
Yes. It seems somewhere in the middle of what you were saying, you talked about how the engineer experts will have certain insights. They'll at least be able to expose some of the considerations of why a product was built the way it was built. Are you a fan of having, let's say, for products like this, where the buyer is also technical? Are you a fan of having those engineers actually hand over some of that and maybe publish it as content on your site so that buyers can read it?
Um, it's, I would say it's a double-edged sword,
Okay.
and I do really like the idea. Uh, but I'll give you an example. You literally have to understand the context of the organization. If you're working for an organization that has really been there since 25, 30 years, and has evolved over the years, you would see that there are certain products that are legacy products and that are cash cows, and that are there. They are 30% or 40% or 60% of your customers, and the roadmaps are in a way where you're really working on that 60% of those customers. Your roadmap is guided by that. So if you work with engineers and you ask them to publish that, you will see that it will not hit a chord um, uh, and
Not if the positioning that the customer expects to hear is one of innovation.
exactly, one of innovation, right? And it depends from industry to industry, right?
Yes. Well,
Some industries love innovation, some industries love to cruise, need incremental innovation. So you have to be very careful. You have to have a good understanding of the context of the industry plus the business, and some additional, and I would say some more emotional
yeah.
intelligence. But if otherwise, I would love to have something like that, and that's such a great idea.
I'm thinking of a particular example, and I'm so glad we're talking about product life cycle and how some of them span decades. Uh, the painkiller idea even comes into play when you think of a product can serve to prevent some loss. I'm thinking specifically of a company that makes software that runs on AS400 systems, but it allows those systems to limp along longer, and interface better and process things quicker, uh, because of the software that's placed on top. And I see that as a very valuable painkiller because it is allowing a company to perhaps stave off a multi-million dollar investment. They know they have to make it at some point, but if this is going to bridge them until they get to that point where they're ready for it, you have, a very solid product, and you would be completely squandering that opportunity if you tried to sell it as a vitamin.
I totally agree with you, and that's where, as a marketer, you have to keep an open mind as well. That you are, like, I feel that marketers do have the skill of being the devil's advocate, just because their neck is on the line when they go outside, and if something doesn't work, a lot of it, like, a lot of people blame them, and I understand why they are devil's advocate. But I feel that as a marketer, you really need to be balanced and honest. And if you feel that a product, and it's not only about feeling, it's about, if the data point is telling you, if you've done your research well, then if something is really a painkiller, say, be bold
Yeah.
about it, right? And that's where the positioning and messaging plays such a huge role. But one thing I do say with caution is that if you have a solution that makes things quicker, or it's kind of on the efficiency side, I would say optimization and efficiency side, um, I would suggest to probably make an internal, committee or an internal team, made up of a couple of different, functions, where you're really capturing those benefits as soon as you onboard the customer, and really tracking those metrics and KPIs as you go at, like, 6 months, 10 months, 18 months, 24 months, so on, so forth. um, and then really publish those, named or unnamed, doesn't matter, as your use cases or case studies. Because when you see that, optimization and efficiency and being quicker, and saving money indirectly,
Yes.
when you have these kind of messages, you really need to back it up with data.
Yeah, and keep an eye on it because of market changes. You want to make sure that if the category as a whole is all of a sudden making a shift, that you're not several exits further down the highway before you realize you missed your turnoff.
Ah, absolutely. Oh my God. Yeah, it's very important to keep an eye on the industry for sure. And that's where I say, like, your direct and indirect customers, sorry, competitors are your, are your biggest, I would say, lessons. Because we all know about our direct competitors, but we do not know about our indirect competitors. That's where you need to keep an eye on, like the iPod example that I gave you. and
Yep.
and I'm sure, like, you are a fan of jobs to be done framework, so you if you've read that book, from our famous loving author, Clayton Christensen, you will see that, he gave an example of, trying to sell, understand how milkshake, what kind of milkshake McDonald's should sell. So you would see that energy bar or a fruit could also be a competitor. So energy bar or a milkshake from other competitor is the direct competitor. But what about people who make their own breakfast and take it during the morning? That's an indirect competitor. um, fruits are indirect competitors. So really, lessons learned: keep an eye on the industry, keep an eye on the trends, look at your direct and indirect competitors, and the trends that could change your industry. I would not even go 5 years. I would say 3 years or so, because with COVID-19, I think innovation and digital transformation, just got reduced. There was a lot of innovation that happened.
Well,
So I'm
yeah,
quite-
the delivery methods have all changed too. And just to finish on that milkshake example, I think what Christensen and his team found was when we're talking about the drive-through, the people who were using the drive-through to order the milkshake were in a completely different demographic, psychographic, consideration. You had long-haul truck drivers who wanted a milkshake to, take for, just to occupy them while they're going down a straight road. And then you had people with, let's say they're in a minivan and they've got kids in the back and it's off to, sports or, activities, and they just want them to be happy while they have to get them there. Uh, my analogy there is, yes, going virtual, having Zoom calls, being able to do all the things that B2B companies do, but virtually. It's like we've all switched from going in the restaurant to now using the drive-through, and we have to think, okay, wait a minute, this does make a significant change, even if we, even if we think, okay, well, we've kind of got it for now. I think the ramifications are going to keep going on for quite some time.
I totally agree. I I'm sure there are both of many industries that is happening because of COVID-19. Look at the event industry that has been disrupted. um, you know, um, the event platforms that we never thought would be like, they were kind of vitamins for us, right? For a lot of the people, event people's customers, it was a vitamin, right?
Just proof
Great,
positive.
you can multicast and you can do that, great, but nothing as against to having people physically in front of you and being in the stage. But look at how COVID-19 changed that product to being a painkiller
Yeah, immediately. Wow.
immediately.
Dipalli, I can't thank you enough for coming and explaining this and just giving us such a considered view of it. It's not something to just look at and go, okay, there's an interesting concept. No, there's a fair bit here, and I'm really glad you've taken us through it. How can people reach out to you? That you have a lot going on. You, as you say, you're doing marketing for 3 companies. I know you've also got involvement on the Forbes Communications Council. How can people reach out to you?
Yes, I do have a lot of things going. I do mentor people and startups as well, with my women founders and funders at Invest Ottawa. That's one thing that I do. I also volunteer with Thai Ottawa. I'm the executive director. So a lot of things going other than the work. I also do a lot of volunteer for the local community. The best way to get in touch with me is via LinkedIn, and you can find me Dipalli, and I might look a little different, but if people pay attention, they might find I'm the right person.
All right, excellent. Well, I'm so thankful. And to the listener, I bet you've got some good value out of this and are looking at things in a different way now. And if there's someone else that that would benefit from listening to this, so it's definitely in the vitamin category, but I do think it'll help some people. I would encourage you to share this episode with them. And if you have any feedback, go ahead and get in touch with me. Thanks for listening.
Thank you, Glenn. I learned a lot too.
Thanks.
All right, bye.
Thanks for listening. Follow the show on Twitter at Funnel Reboot. If you like what you have heard today, please consider leaving a review wherever you get your podcasts.